Hi, welcome back to another podcast with Mr. Hagan. And on the last podcast, we talked about the determinant change in the price of related goods substitutes. In this podcast, we're going to look at change in price of related goods complements. So let's just review what that means. Substitute goods are goods that get consumed in place of each other. We did that on the last video. On this video, we are looking at complementary goods. Those are goods that tend to get consumed together. Goods that tend to get consumed together. So a great example of this, by the way, is peanut butter and jelly, shirt and tie, shoes and socks, things like that. So let's do the shoes and socks example. So let's make my good be socks. Okay, my good's going to be socks. So this is going to be the quantity of socks. This is going to be the price of socks. And then, of course, there's a supply curve, demand curve. There's an equilibrium quantity, equilibrium price in the marketplace. And my real world event is going to be an increase in the price of sneakers. An increase in the price of sneakers. So the first thing we'd have to do is identify that sneakers and socks are complementary goods. They're not substitutes for each other, generally speaking. So they are complementary goods. So we would say my determinant in the sock market is going to be a change in the price. Change in the price of. Let me back that up. So my determinant is going to be a change. Here we go, try that again. Change in the price of related goods complements. Change in the price of related goods complements. Okay? That's what's going to happen here in the sock market. But before we focus on that, let's just come over here to the shoe market, for example. And I just drew the demand curve for shoes, quantity of shoes, price of shoes. There's a current equilibrium price and quantity. And of sneakers I'm doing here. So if the price of sneakers goes up, what's going to happen? Well, if the price of sneakers goes up to, say, P2, if the price of sneakers goes up, well, then people are going to buy fewer sneakers. And in the sneaker market, that would be a change in the quantity demanded. We don't want to, not focusing on that right now, but just that's what would happen. But the focus for us is if the price of sneakers goes up, people will buy fewer sneakers. Now, how does that affect the sock market? Well, if the price of sneakers goes up, people will buy fewer sneakers. If they buy fewer sneakers, then they're going to buy fewer pair of socks. And so as a result of that, the demand for socks is going to shift to the left. The demand curve for socks is going to shift in to the left. So if you get an increase in the price of a complement, sneakers, people buy fewer sneakers, then they're not going to need as many pair of socks. Okay? So then they buy fewer socks, and as a result of that, the demand curve for socks is going to shift into the left. Okay? And by the way, there would also be substitutes here, like maybe instead of sneakers, people are wearing sandals or something like that. So there would be substitute effects. But we are right now just focusing on the complementary effects. So the price of sneakers goes up, people go buy sandals instead, whatever. But if the price of sneakers goes up, they buy fewer socks. That's what happens. That's the complementary effect. So the demand for socks will shift into the left, the price of socks will go down, and the equilibrium quantity of sneakers the equilibrium quantity of socks, will go down. So we get a decrease in the price of socks, a decrease in the quantity of socks, and then we say, okay, what do we call this? The change in quantity down here, it gets two names. The demand curve shifted, so we call that a decrease in demand. And then we moved along the supply curve. So we call that a decrease in quantity supplied. We call that a decrease in the quantity supplied. So whenever the price of a complement goes up, the price of the good we are studying will go down. Let's look at the conclusion that we can draw here. Anytime you get an increase in the price of a complement, that's what we did, increase in the price of sneakers, then the demand for the good that we are studying will shift to the left. That was the decrease in demand for socks. And then going the other way, if you get a decrease in the price of the complement, if sneakers became cheaper and people started buying more sneakers, then they would might buy some more socks to go with those sneakers. So the demand for the good that we were studying, socks, would shift out to the right. So that's our rule for change in price of related goods complements. This has been another Econ Podcast with Mr. Hagan. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you on the next podcast.